Hey, Brigham with Drift here. Thanks for joining me. In this video, I want to share 6 things that I learned from trying out 20 different boards in 2 days. So last week, Dave and I, who's the owner of Drift, got to attend the Interlude Snowboard Demo at Snowbasin in Utah. Interlude is run by some core members of the snowboard community. They bring in shops and shop employees, and then also brands. They connect them at some events down in Ogden in the evenings, kind of a trade show sort of thing, and then also 2 demo days up on the mountain. And we were able to attend that. We attended it kind of more on the shop side so that we could try different boards and get to know people from different brands. It's been a few years since I've done anything like that. It was awesome. It was a very well done event. If you're a part of the industry and you have a chance to be a part of that, I would highly recommend it. But one of the coolest things about it was getting on, like I said, I think about 20 different boards over those 2 days. I think Dave and I both got on about 10 boards each day. Right now, coming up on mid-January, we have an awesome storm system happening in Utah, and this was right before that got started. So Thursday of the event, conditions were pretty brutal. Hadn't really snowed in Utah for about a month. So just so you know what the conditions were like as I talk a little bit. And then Friday, it started to snow, and it was a little bit better. There was some soft snow, but it was pretty tough still. So with that in mind, 6 things that I learned from riding all those boards, one after another, back to back over those 2 days. The first thing is that testing the extremes that are available can teach you a lot about snowboards. Whether that's extremes in sizing, trying something big, trying something small, but also flex patterns, stiff or soft, or effective edge lengths or side cuts or whatever. You can just really learn a lot by going to the far edges and seeing how things compare. For example, I rode a Jones Free Carver 9000. That is a very aggressive camber with a very long effective edge, and it's quite stiff. It's obviously designed to carve, and it does that really well. And compare that to something like the Battalion Disaster, which is a super soft park board. Honestly, if you put them next to each other, just at face value, the shapes don't look that different, but they're extremely different in their intentions on the hill and how they feel. And that's just an example, but it's really fun to be able to kind of go to those extremes, try something really big, try something small, try something aggressive, try something casual. And, you really see those differences that those geometries make. And so if you're shopping for boards and looking at all the details on brands' websites, sometimes you think, oh, this is all just a bunch of marketing talk. It doesn't really matter or whatever. But those various shapes and those various geometries, they do make a difference. And each board is unique. And especially on those extremes, you can really see it. Second thing that I learned was that if you know your stuff, you can get a pretty good idea of how a board's going to ride without actually riding it. And I've kind of always wondered about this, as I've looked at specs and studied and researched and tried to pick boards without riding them, because I order most of them without riding them first in the past. And, how good of an idea can you get? To me, one of the trickiest things is probably just the flex pattern and how that's going to feel. It's always a little tricky to me to know just how stiff or soft a board is going to feel for me personally. But as far as like shape and geometries and stuff, I realized, because I picked a bunch of boards that I wanted to try, but I noticed that a lot of times my predictions were pretty spot on. So like I tried the Cardiff Goat Enduro in a 166. I like the length and I like the width, but my hunch was, based on their numbers and their description, that board, even though I like the dimensions, was probably going to be a little bit much for me. And I really liked the board, but it was a little much, probably more than I needed. I would like something in those dimensions that was a little softer and a little less aggressive. On the other hand, I got on the Battalion Beyond Metals, and they only had a 159. I had a pretty good idea. This is going to feel a little too small, a little too narrow, probably a little too squirrely because of the 3VT, especially for the conditions. And it was. It was a tough ride, and all those things were accurate for me. One more example would be getting on the K2 excavator for the first time. You know, I researched that a lot, had a pretty good feel for what that board's meant to do and that shape and everything. And, you know, I would say it pretty much just checked all the boxes that I expected it to check. So, you know, I'm trying to think if there was anything that was super surprising for me. And, I can't really say that there was. As far as boards that I had researched, none of them, you know, really took me by big surprise. The third thing that I would share that I noticed, and I guess maybe hate to admit a little bit, but that is that the big brands, they have the resources and the capacity to really do some amazing things. You know, and I'm talking your K2s, your Capitas, and especially Burton. We love Burton, but we're not, you know, big time fanboys. The only Burton I have in here is my Performer Elite from the 80s that I learned how to snowboard on right now. I'm not against Burton, but I kind of typically tend to like not be as stoked on, you know, the biggest brands. I don't know why. I guess it's just kind of cool to support the little guys. But one of the things we noticed was that Burton knows how to make a snowboard. Their boards were our favorite pretty consistently, specifically the shortstop we both really liked, and the Deep Thinker. I mean, as far as those nasty conditions, there's some close seconds, but the Deep Thinker was like the board that gave me the most comfort and confidence of the whole 2 days. And honestly, I kind of didn't want it to be that way. I don't know why. Burton's been awesome to us. We did a collaboration with them. I knew they made good boards, but I guess sometimes I want to go with the little guys. And to be fair, the little guys are always nipping at their heels and doing creative things. I think it is possible for some small brands to just like pick a shape off the shelf and just get it made and try to make some money, and it's not that cool. Honestly, I think like Kemper would be a brand that's like that. But there's others who are super thoughtful and they're able to be creative too and do some cool things. Cardiff is like that. United Shapes is like that. Endeavor's like that. So I had to kind of tell myself, you can't dismiss the big boys. Capita, I didn't really talk about them, but same thing. Like the Megadeth, it was like, dang, this is probably materially the sweetest board that's ever been put together. Fourth thing is that I learned that there are boards that are made for basically pros or people that are at pro level of riding, and they might make you feel cool to get one of those boards, but you probably shouldn't be on one unless it's mostly about your ego. For me, I've always wanted to try the Alchemist. I haven't ever yet. And I took out the 164 wide Alchemist. Again, super nasty conditions. Just a lot of ice and everything was rock hard. You know, but considering those conditions, some of the boards felt pretty good and I felt pretty confident on them. And you guys know, I like to ride hard. I like to ride fast. To put it simply, the Alchemist was just so far beyond me. It had to have been for me, I think, the stiffest board that I've ever been on. And I'm not doing a review of the Alchemist right now. I could tell you some more things, but for me in that size, it was stiff enough that like I couldn't even flex it to engage the side cut in a carve. It was so stiff as to be on the verge of being dangerous for me as I tried to ride it. And I remember just thinking, like, who is this board for? And, it's for Curtis Cizik. He rides a 164 wide Alchemist, and you got to watch a Curtis Cizik video and look at what he's doing and appreciate the gulf between me and what he's doing and why he might need a board that's that stiff and that aggressive. And we were able to do a couple of laps with some professional snowboarders and a couple of former pros who are still in the industry, and both of those laps, again, like, but getting up here with some of these guys, I mean, it was just really clear the gulf between me and kind of weekend warrior status that's been riding for a long time, and these guys who are at a level where they get paid for it. And then there's the boards that are there too. The other one I would mention is the Capita Kazu. It was a cool board, but it was just too much for me. It was like, I just don't need this much board. And most of that is manifest in the flex. At the speeds that these guys go and the size of the air that they get and the power and stability that they need, it's just so far beyond me and what I'm doing. And I've come to grips with it. I'm okay with it. The fifth thing that I learned, and I knew this, but when you ride a bunch of boards back to back, it's just kind of a really cool opportunity to see this really clearly. That is that there are absolutely right and wrong boards for you and for the conditions. So if I was in a perfect powder field of, a steep, long, pristine field, I'll bet you that Alchemist would have been pretty fun. Probably still, way stiffer than I needed it, but I probably would have enjoyed it. But in those conditions, it was just absolutely the wrong board for me. Another example would be I grabbed the Nitro Basher, and I was mostly riding like more aggressive free ride type boards, but I got on a couple of freestyle boards just to see how they felt. And this is the one that Canute has talked about recently that he's super stoked about. It's in their quiver line, but it's a twin. I think it's got a little bit of spoon shaping on the tip and tail. For me, it's on the shorter side. It's a 159. And I grabbed that board and I got it all set up. And then Dave was like, hey, we're taking the lift up with the Cardiff crew and we're going to do a lap with them. And it was the first time that I had got on the John Paul lift, which it goes to one of the higher points on the mountain and some of the more aggressive terrain. And I was a little bit nervous because I was like, man, I just grabbed the wrong board for a lap with these hardcore freeride guys to go to the top of the mountain with. And I was fine, but especially near the top, as we started coming down with these guys, it was just really obvious to me, like, this isn't the best board for this. It's steep, it's icy, and I'm on, kind of a park noodle. And that board, like, if I was going out with my kids and cruising around the park and messing around on the groomers and on some green and blue trails, like, that board is amazing. But I really wished I was on one of the other boards on that lap. So, it was just a reminder, like, as people try to pick boards, it does matter because there really are boards that are good for what you're doing and other boards that are not. The other one that was like just so bad for the conditions was that Battalion Beyond Metals. And I knew it would be. Like, I love Battalion, I love 3BT, but I really don't have any pleasure for most of their shapes if the snow's not soft. And this one in particular, like, I could imagine, I'm picturing in my mind some of the Beyond Metals guys that ride that board and what they're able to do on that thing out in the backcountry. And I'm like, yeah, this thing would be amazing. But on this icy boilerplate day, that was the scariest board that I rode. It was downright sketchy. So there are right and wrong boards for the conditions. But that brings me to my number one, and this is like the one I've been saving because it's my favorite one, that even though there are right and wrong boards for you and for the conditions, and even though I could line up all 20 of those boards and I could say this one was my favorite and this one was my least favorite, and I could probably tell you like my top 5 and my bottom 5. Maybe I'll do a video about that or something. Sorry, the middle gets pretty muddy, kind of hard to tell where I would rank a lot of the boards in the middle. There's a lot where I was just kind of like, yeah, it's a snowboard, it was fine. But as I help people pick boards and I give people board advice and stuff, and people get so stressed out about all the little details and wanting to make sure they pick the right board, one of the things that I want to tell them is that even though there are right boards and wrong boards, and there were boards that were better than others for me, the number one thing that I learned is that they're all fun. Every single lap I did was fun. And so I guess I think a lot about a lot of people maybe hoping that they can relax a little bit as they pick boards, especially if they've got it down to like 3 boards that they really like, and they're trying to decide between the 2 and they're comparing all these little things and stuff. The reality is like they're all fun. Thanks for watching. I'd love to get your comments or your questions. If there's anything else I can tell you about Interlude and my experience, I might make some more videos about that. I'd love to get your thoughts. You can ask me anything. Maybe we'll have some more videos generated.